Hello there, I'm back again with the MSS loco that I converted to run on gas. Also has a regulator and better wheels and a Goodall valve to fill with water, which enables you to fill up even when there is some steam in but the water level is low. So what I'm going to go through today is how I actually do this. I'm not saying it's the right way, but it's the way I do it, and I believe it's a safe way of doing things. And I think one of the things that I've been working with steam locos of all different gauges, from 16mm SM32 right up to 5-inch gauge locos that you can ride on. And I've been doing that for about 18 years. So I've got a little bit of experience, so I think I know what I'm doing. But anyway, if you think I'm doing it wrong, you can always put a comment to let me know. Now, because this has a Goodall valve, which is this valve here, it's a way of filling the loco. The original intended way was to take the old safety valve out, which is here. That's another thing I've modified, by the way. It's got a higher pressure safety valve. This would be just a safety valve, and you unscrew that and fill it up with water. But of course, you can only really do that when it's cold. Whereas if you were running this on the garden railway, you would not want to keep taking it down every 5 minutes, let it cool down before you fill it up with water and a bit more gas, because that would just take the fun out of playing trains. And let's face it, most of us just want to play trains. I do anyway. So what the Goodall valve does is, with the aid of one of these water top-up bottles, you can see there it's got a trigger and a hose, and literally you put the hose inside the Goodall valve. Now what's inside there is a ball bearing and a spring. When there is steam on the inside of the boiler pushing up, it shuts the valve. The only way you can overcome that is when you squeeze this, the pressure that comes down this tube and in pushes the ball valve down and allows the water to go in. Now, I'm going to fill this up. There's none in it at all. It hasn't been run for about a year now. Now what I do, because on the back of here, I'm not going to move it all around, there's just a little glass panel that you can see. Now I use one of these little magnetic torches, and it's on an extendable stick. Looks a bit like a car aerial with a light on the end, really. So that's what it looks like. There's the handle right the way down to the end where there's a light. Now I use that because it's very difficult to see where the water is in, especially when it begins to kind of get a little bit of limescale on the inside of the water. This is a soft water that I'm using. Rainwater is good, things like that. So now I'm going to keep squeezing this and fill up the boiler. There we go. We can start hearing it work now. Here it goes. Anything's coming out yet? We'll just check. There she goes. Right, we have water now. It's primed. I'm going to put my light on there, and I'm going to start squeezing. You'll hear it now start to go in. Now I can see water now coming into the boiler. It's just off the minimum. It's coming up to half, and then I will put it up to where it says max, which is not right up the top. And the reason you don't want it right up the top is because you need room for the steam. So I'm getting up near there now. It doesn't hold a lot. It's only a very small boiler. Right. We are now just coming up to the maximum mark. So I'll leave it there. That's it. That's as easy as that. That's filled the water. I'll move that bottle out of the way now. Now the next thing is to fill the gas. Now this is quite simple. So what we need for that, I'll show you the gas cylinder that I use. Okay. This was £4.99. It's a butane propane mix, so it's quite hot because the butane and propane gives you quite a heat. Okay, I've got the actual nozzle that I purchased at the same time as I bought the gas cylinder and the gas tank and the ceramic burner. and I got them from a company that advertise on eBay called Bix, B-I-X, and they make specifically these for Mammoth traction engines and things like that. And this one actually fits this loco, the MSS loco, which is more or less the same as a conventional Mammoth loco. Okay, has a valve on the top, so I'm going to make sure that's closed. So just turn that round until you nip it, then turn upside down, put the valve down in to the tank, and I've got it up on blocks, and the reason for that is because obviously we don't want the wheels to foul on anything. So I'm now going to push down, and you'll see it to start to fill. That's it. Just let it go a bit more. That's it. You'll know when it's full because it should come shooting back up. So you can hear it filling. Right. I'm going to take that as being full. If I turn on, I don't know if you better hear it. You can hear the gas coming. Okay. So just put a bit more. You cannot overfill these tanks, by the way, because it just comes out like it is there. So that's full. Right. So we just leave that like that now. Let the smell die off a little bit. It's not really going to come to much harm. Now the other thing I always do is you want a little bit of oil. At the moment I just got a 3-in-1 oil. I have got steam oil for the bigger loco, which I'll go into on a future video. But I'll put a little bit on the end of the cylinders there, like so, because it's going to get hot. And when metals get hot, they expand. And they need a little bit of lubrication, just like the full size does. So it's just going to drip on this tabletop, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to go anywhere because it's a plastic coating. And I will wipe it all off when I finish. And I won't get any on the carpet, because if I do, I will get shot, like most of us would. Right, the next thing we need, I use one of these long, like a barbecue lighter. You can buy them quite cheap in like Poundland, places like that. It's made by Clipper. It's refillable, so I can fill that with another butane gas canister I got, like you do with the cigarette lighter. So what I need to do next is to turn on the gas and ignite the burner. Now the burner is along there, so the best way to do that is to turn on, turn the gas first, put the igniter on. There we are, and we're alight. It looks a little bit fierce, but that is now alight. Put the lighter thing out the way completely, and the heat is there straight away. It's quite hot. So we've now got water in the boiler. I can check that level to make sure it's not gone down. No, it's riding on the max. I'm sorry you can't see it, but all you're seeing is water on a level. You don't need to see that at the moment. If you do, I can make another video with seeing that. But it's better that you can see me operating the regulator and the other bits. Now we make sure at the front that we're in neutral. And because we've converted this, the lever at the front is only a reverser. So forward and reverse is done by changing that. Whereas in its natural state, the MSS loco, without any conversions, that would be forward and reverse and full, or whatever power you set it to. So you move it completely one way, that will be full power in that direction. You move it the other way, vice versa. So that is what that does. Now you can see a little bit of water coming up from the good old valve at the moment. It hasn't been used for some time. So now the only thing, of course, I don't know on here is what the pressure is in the boiler, because I haven't got a pressure gauge. You could go to all of them lengths. You can have a glass water gauge on here if you wanted to. You could have an actual pressure gauge that shows you the pressure as well if you want to. I've got that on a bigger loco, which I'll show you later in the week. But on this one, it's quite a simple loco, so I keep things simple. You find, because of the gas that's in here, we can't be far off now because you can just see a little whiff of steam coming up. So I'm now going to try opening the regulator a little bit. and give the wheel a push. So we've got steam blowing off from there, and we're going to then move that and push that. And as you can see, within a few minutes we've got that running. So I'm going to look at my watch. It's about 5:15 and that's running flat out now. And I'm going to operate the regulator so that you can see just by turning it in, this actually does work. It's quite sensitive, so she's just plodding around now with a few wagons. If I want to stop, we'll try it in the opposite direction. We'll move to the other way, open the valve, and she's off. It's as quick as that. Now this, to anybody that's run a basic MSS loco straight from the box, will know that it doesn't happen like this. You have water shooting all over the place, and by the time you get to this stage, the little solid fuel tablets are running out. Now I'm blowing off, so she's actually making steam and she's running. So I'm going to open the regulator a bit more, and you can see there's quite a bit of power. I'm going to put my finger underneath. Yeah, there's quite a bit of power on that, but look at how much control you've got. Just a very simple regulator it is. You could take the round knob off if you wanted to and put a long bar. You could probably go to the extent of radio controlling it if you wanted to. There's no reason why not. You could hide the batteries up, you could put a small tender on and put the batteries and all the other bits and pieces in the tender if you wanted to. So yeah. So we're running. We got some steam coming up out of the chimney as well. So it's looking like quite an expensive loco. So I think for the money, this is a really good starter loco. And like I say, if you want to do the modifications one at a time, you know, we're not all made of money. I'm not rich, but by saving up, and I done this in sections. I started with the wheels because it was the wheels that were giving me the most problem. It just kept coming off at the curves. So now it'll run nicely round the track. I will take it down to the club that I belong to very shortly, and with my other locos, and I'll give them all a run and make some videos so you can actually see what I do, because we've all got our own ways of doing things. Now at the moment that's been running coming up to 3 minutes. We've still got steam coming out the safety valve. I'm going to check the water level now. Let's see what we've got in there. Yes, we are above half a tank. We're down a little bit from the maximum level, but we're well within the safety. If it gets down to the minimum, then I would just cut the gas supply. But we're now running still quite well. So it's quite impressive. I've still got power. I can open her up. I can slow her right down. So we're coming down into a station now. So I can just slow her down, stop at the station, and then I think what we'll do is we'll reverse back. So as you can see now, she'll start blowing off in a minute because obviously we're not using any of the steam, and you can hear the safety valve. So now I'm going to open her up. We're going to start moving off. And straight away, I'm not pushing it or doing anything. That's the steam doing it. So that's how well it does work. So I think this is a lovely cheap loco. I mean, you can paint it whatever colour. They do, I believe they do a saddle tank in this now. I think they do other colours as well. So if you want a simple little garden railway, you can buy wagons, kits from a company called IP Engineering. They make very good stuff. They make battery stuff, and they will make coaches, wagons that are suitable to be pulled by this. You might need to put a little bit of weight in sometimes just to keep it. Some of it's made of quite light wood, but I've got some IP Engineering wagons and they run beautiful. The idea of IP Engineering was it was a cheap way of people to get into garden railways, because any of you that know, there is some very expensive locos out there, 2 or 3 grand even for a small garden railway loco. we haven't always got that as a disposable income, but you can see how long this is running. So this is running coming up to 5 minutes now, which you can do quite a bit in that. I'm going to check the water again. The water now is about half, and we're still going. I'm going to just turn off for a couple of minutes, and I think we're still making steam. The gas is still running, no problem there. You can see a little whiff of steam coming up, I hope. I can see it, but I'm sitting much closer, so that's showing. And then just a little nip on the regulator, and she fires straight away. I haven't had to touch the wheel, whereas sometimes before this was converted, you'd have to give it a little bit of push to give it a bit of persuasion, but it never seemed to have enough steam to be able to make its mind up what it wanted to do. Whereas with these conversions that are on here, it just does it. And to me, I mean, I've driven 5-inch gauge big locos, Britannias and things like that, and this is just as responsive. Well, actually not as powerful, it's not as big, but this will pull a few wagons, 2 or 3 coaches. I've had this pull in 2 coaches, which are quite heavy, because the bogies themselves on them locos are quite heavy, to keep them on the track, and it runs quite nicely. So I think we're going to come into another station now, so I'm just going to slow her down, and we'll come to a stop, and then we're going to go back the other way, just to prove that it all works in both directions. You can still hear her blowing off a little bit. There's a bit of steam wafting from the chimney there. We're just going to gently open the regulator, and away she goes. We're just pulling away now, and off we go. There's nothing really harmful here. I've got the water, obviously I can spray on anything. You sometimes get that big flame wafting when you first light it up, but there's not a lot of space underneath the boiler to the top of the ceramic burner. It's very well made. I just can't think of anything on this Bix gas tank. It's beautiful. It's beautifully machined, painted. All of the parts really fit nicely, and all you have to do is just gently bend the pipework round when you're fitting. The thing is, don't be in a hurry. Have plenty of time. If something don't go right, just stop. Leave it till tomorrow or a bit later. Now we've been running what, 7.5 minutes we're running at the moment. We've still got water in there. Yep, it's getting down a little bit. Now what I'm going to show you, I'll just put a little bit more water in, so I can put that in the Goodall valve and start pumping that in. I'm going to try that anyway. The thing is, it's so hot. Right, now as you can see, that's knocked the steam back a bit because I put a bit of water in, but it's still running. So we'll have a look at where we are on there. That's it. Right, so I think we've seen enough for now. I'll move the bottle. She's still going, plenty of them. But and we've been going what, about 9 minutes. I reckon 10 to 15 minutes, and then you would need to fill her. So I don't think that's too bad for something of this size. And you can bring it down to just a very slow tick over like that. So it's just ticking, and I can go from there right up after running for that length of time. So we're coming up to about 9 minutes now, thereabouts. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to let that run like that, and I'm going to turn the gas off. So the gas is now off, and she's run down. You can see a nice little whiff of steam still coming out the chimney. But that's it. Now if you've got any questions, put them in the comments, okay, and I will get back to you. But I think you'll find, if you are thinking of building a small garden railway and you haven't got a lot of money to spend, I haven't got millions of pounds to spend, I'm afraid, but it took me a few months to get this up to where it is now, purely because I just didn't buy everything in one go. Started with the wheels, Then I think the next thing after that was the regulator and the Goodall valve. I fitted them. That brought about drastic changes. I then did have a methylated spirits burner that I tried. That is not too bad, but the methylated spirits, I was actually at somebody's house running on some plastic track that they had the right gauge, but the meths leaked and I didn't know it, and it started melting the track, so that wasn't good, was it? So then I thought, well, a lot of people now are using gas, so I just took that out and converted it to gas, which is very easy. The ceramic burner fits in the same place as where the meths burner fitted, and originally the solid fuel burners, it all fits in the same place. These bits are all designed by people so that it fits, so it's not really hard. I mean, if you can't do it yourself, then find someone with some kind of engineering experience. It don't have to be a fully qualified engineer, but somebody that can undo nuts and bolts and work out how something goes. And the main thing is to not kink any of the pipe work, because if you kink it, two things will happen. One, you can restrict the flow, and if you try to unkink it, you could start to split the pipe. Well, obviously on a gas pipe, you don't really want the split in it for obvious reasons, because then the flame will ignite where the split is, and you don't want that going back into the tank or back, or you, because you're at the back here operating it. So for safety reasons, just nice, the pipe work, because it's copper, before it work hard, if you keep bending it backwards and forwards, it will work harden, which means it will get harder, in which case you will need to anneal it. But I don't think you really need to go into all that detail, but just bend it nice and gently around your thumb and things like that, and until you get the rough shape. But yeah, I didn't find it difficult. But anyway, that's it for today, and I hope you found that really interesting. Please like, subscribe to the channel, because there will be more of this type of thing coming. So I keep adding bits all the time. I've got a vast wide interest in it's mainly railways, but modelling, and some, you know, very light engineering as well, which sometimes comes into modelling. You might be making bits of plastic, but you might have to file it, make a bit. I've done all sorts of things, casting, so I can show you lots of bits if you want to make a model more detailed than what it is, and things like that. So anyway, please subscribe and like if that's what you want to do, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.